This week in the business of tech, the Federal Trade Commission turns its attention to those who mishandle data. Australia has released new guidelines for small and mid-sized business security. TechAisle published a report on channel partner trends. This podcast Q4 Diversity Report. The adoption of software as a service is increasing, but security concerns remain. A warning of the risk posed by service providers to financial clients. And a study has found a connection between employee retention and meeting attendance in virtual work environments. All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Axios had a rare interview with Samuel Levine, director of the Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Consumer Protection. The focus? The agency won't hesitate to sue companies that play fast and loose with customers' data. Quote, "We are not afraid to take companies to court," Levine told Axios. "We are not afraid to litigate." Yes, we're a government agency, he said, but the FTC is also, in the words of former FTC Chair Michael Perchduck, the greatest public interest law firm in the country. Quote, "We try to focus on cases where we can have the most impact. We want to send a message to other companies in the marketplace." Let's quote the article further. Levine, a top deputy of tech industry critic FTC Chair Lina Khan, is playing a pivotal role in shaping the agency's potential new rules on commercial surveillance, which includes the targeted advertising that drives so many online business models. Those rules also focus on data security, and privacy advocates see them as an essential means to restrain industry abuses in the absence of a federal online privacy law. The agency could issue guidance next year. Why do we care? So the FTC is cracking down on data usage. Sure, they'll focus on big companies primarily. That sets up a framework for other companies, particularly smaller ones, to leverage in their legal proceedings. And that's why we care. I've said a couple of times this year how I believe data management is a space to offer services in. One can see the walls closing in, making the bounds of acceptable behavior smaller, and thus space to help customers leverage their data more effectively and safely. I'm highlighting this space further. The Joint Ransomware Task Force, established as part of the landmark incident reporting legislation signed into law by President Joe Biden earlier this year, held its second meeting last Wednesday and unveiled a series of working groups focused on specific areas of the digital epidemic, the most concrete action taken to date by the Work in Progress group. In particular, let's highlight two working groups. Measurement, collecting data and metrics that will improve the cybersecurity community's collective understanding of ransomware affecting U.S. organizations and trends associated with actors, victims, and impacts, which will in turn inform U.S. government actions to counter the threat, provide more actionable guidance, and evaluate progress. And partner engagement, expanding operational collaboration and multi-directional intelligence sharing between JRTF members and non-governmental partners, including the private sector and the international community, to more effectively prevent, detect, and respond to evolving ransomware campaigns. Why do we care? Ever so slow forward progress from the federal government. Progress nonetheless. We care to watch for the outputs of these working groups and an opportunity to contribute to the process. Here's a dream. Wouldn't it be nice to have a more formalized set of data and metrics to collect that was industry defined? So, something striking from the news conference last week with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Let me quote from Axios. Quote, "Close to 500,000 who would have been working died from COVID," Powell said while talking about the U.S. labor shortage. In a footnote to a speech he gave on November 30th, Powell estimates that 400,000 working-age Americans died in excess of what was anticipated pre-pandemic. Compared to pre-pandemic projections, around 3.5 million people are effectively missing from the American workforce, as Powell explained in that speech at the Brookings Institution. This number includes older workers who left the labor force earlier than expected. Quote, "These excess retirements might now account for more than 2 million of the shortfall," he said. The other 1.5 million comes from a decline in immigration and a surge in deaths. Overall, 1.09 million Americans lost their lives to COVID-19, according to Johns Hopkins data. Why do we care? I wanted to highlight this hard reality. One reason why there is a labor shortage is that there are fewer laborers, because they died. That's a horrific reality. I felt it necessary to stay this because there are many other reasons thrown around for the lack of workers, and yet this is an important headline. When companies weigh IT purchases, improving efficiency, productivity, and profitability are the top priorities, according to a recent report by Forrester that surveyed 2,000 technology buyers at high-tech companies. Keeping the business running, revenue growth, and customer experience were the following considerations on the list. According to the survey, vendors' technical expertise and reputation can impact buying decisions, price, and ability of a product or service to meet enterprise needs. Technology buyers typically prefer to consult sources other than vendors, including technology websites, online forums, and business consultants, to inform purchasing decisions, the report said. Let's also add a Snow software survey. A ranked list of priorities for leaders in 2023 shows that the number one directive next year will be to reduce costs. According to the report, lower security risks and digital transformation are the second and third priorities. Driving innovation for competitive advantage dropped in importance in 2023, down to the number 8 spot from number 5 this year. This thanks to CIO Dive. Why do we care? There's a bit of me that says none of this is surprising at all. That's a bit comforting during the holiday season. It's not that difficult to predict customer needs. It's not to say it's easy to do them. That said, for as much as the industry spends navel-gazing, the basics are pretty reliable. Australia has released a series of guides designed to help small and mid-sized businesses safeguard their cloud environments and protect against common cybersecurity incidents. These include technical guidelines for multi-factor authentication and patch management. On Friday, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre said it had developed the Small Business Cloud Security Guides in recognition that SMBs might need more resources to understand the complexities of operating online or responding to potential cyber risks. The government agency said the guides would help these businesses understand such risks, to work with managed service providers or their own IT teams to ensure robust cyber hygiene. The cloud security guides were developed with Microsoft, said the head, Abigail Bradshaw, who added that working with public and private organizations helped establish Australia as a hard target for cyber criminals. This from ZDNet. Why do we care? This felt very tactical. How about considering it a holiday present to the industry, more guides for helping SMBs pull together the basics? That isn't to devalue the guides. Instead, it's to highlight this and similar resources. Let's note that specific call out for managed services providers. They're watching.
MSPs are frequently at the forefront of cybersecurity challenges. Between changing customer expectations and the growing threat landscape, you are stretched thin. Need a helping hand? Download new research sponsored by Field Effect and learn how offering MDR increases revenue, simplifies operations, and maximizes margins for MSPs. This independent analysis explores the growing managed detection and response market and how MSPs can differentiate their managed security service with the right MDR solution. You'll also find insights from 5 MSPs who have added Covalence, a hybrid MDR solution, to their offerings and the positive impact it has had on business. Want to learn more? Visit fieldeffect.com/MSP-report, and the link is in the show notes.
And let's check in on that Rackspace incident. Last week, the company pushed back on the idea that the entry was via proxy.shell, saying that while the investigation is nearly complete, they do not have a definitive answer on how the threat vector came in. Per statements from company executives, they have restored email to more than 3/4 of its hosted Exchange customers. Why do we care? I wanted to focus on one critical question here. How does one know that the investigation is nearly complete, yet not have an answer to how the attack came in? I'm happy to wait for the full report, and when it comes to an investigation, I will encourage an organization to move diligently where accuracy is more important than speed. That's different from restoration, of course, which should prioritize speed. The takeaway? Your messaging should be transparent and accurate. It's tempting to try and promise dates. When you don't know, don't do that. TechAisle has released its Channel Partner Trends Research. Let's pull from the release. Each year, TechAisle asks decision makers in the channel to identify their top business issues and develops a top 10 ranking based on this information. This list serves as an industry standard for understanding the business issues that define actions, interests, and investments for the coming year. The latest findings show that managing uncertainty is the top business issue cited by 45% of channel partners, up from 34% a year ago. Driving growth, identified by 43% of channel decision makers as an essential priority for the next 12 months, is the number 2 concern of channel executives. It was the top concern in 2022, 2021, and 2020. Scanning the balance of the list, we see a central theme as per the survey of 2,115 channel partners. Issues relating to efficiency and control are becoming more important, while those relating to expansion are declining. Nearly half of the partners plan to focus on cross-selling and upselling to their existing customers over chasing new customer logos. Marketing is focusing on the land part of the sales process, and sales are increasing its focus on the expand part of land and expand. Why do we care? There's comfort in the refocus on business stability, and as uncertainty approaches, operators are shifting to keep customers happy, expanding their businesses, and keeping the lights on. It's a warning sign too, though, although I want to focus on the positive. It's time for this podcast's quarterly diversity report. Each quarter, we measure the leadership makeups of the teams delivering IT services. Monitoring 301 companies, this quarter's report tracks 3,925 people, up from last quarter. Identified on each organization's website, they are then classified as white and the non-white, as well as specifically black. Additionally, they are classified as male or female. According to the data for Q4 2022, 88.92% of the leadership team members tracked are white, a decrease of 1.5 percentage points from the previous quarter's 89.19%. The percentage of male leaders remained relatively unchanged at 78.6% compared to 79.12% in the last quarter. Black leadership increased by 0.5 percentage point to 2.14%, but the increase in the Fortune 1000 from the previous quarter has decreased 2.27%. In addition to these findings, it's worth noting that the Kapoor Foundation, an organization dedicated to reducing racial disparities in the tech industry, has identified several strategies for improving diversity and inclusion in the workplace. These include implementing programs that address belonging, advancement, pay, and harassment, and having full support and accountability at the board and CEO level. Apprenticeships can also be effective, but the U.S. has lagged behind other countries in establishing large-scale programs. Data also of note of the Fortune 500, only 8.8% have female CEOs. Why do we care? It's important to highlight diversity and inclusion because it's the right thing to do, and because it can benefit a company's bottom line. According to a Catalyst and Harvard Business School study, companies with more diverse leadership teams are more successful in their corporate social responsibility efforts and contribute more to charitable funds. A survey by Glassdoor found that 67% of job seekers consider workforce diversity when evaluating job offers. There is a competitive advantage to be found for individual organizations because of the overall lack of progress. It's why I continue to focus on it. New data from the SMB group, quote, 60% of SMBs still use spreadsheets, phone, email, and personal productivity software to manage customer service, instead of customer service software. The smaller the company, the more likely they are to rely on a patchwork quilt of software and manual processes to provide customer service, which gets more cumbersome as things get more complicated. Why do we care? Less is more, fewer tools, and simplification. Anytime I get worried about the future of services around technology, a set of data like this is published, reinforcing that there is considerable value to be unlocked in helping businesses operate better with technology. Note that this isn't about keeping the lights on, it's about making their business run better. I'll be talking SaaS a bit more in my 2023 prediction series, out next week, but I spotted two datasets to round out the year. According to research from security vendor Axnosis, focused on SaaS usage, 74% of businesses have more than half of their applications in the cloud, and 66% are spending more on SaaS applications now than a year ago. However, most organizations said SaaS security lagged in urgency and priority. Of those surveyed, 60% ranked SaaS security fourth or lower on their list of current security priorities, pointing to limited time and resources, 28%, pressure to focus on other issues from the C-suite at 23%, and staffing shortages, 15%. According to a recent Channel Pro Readers survey, roughly half, 48%, of respondents believe securing SaaS applications is more complex than securing the network and endpoints. Moreover, in the Axios research, 66% of organizations agreed that the increase in SaaS applications has resulted in more complexity and increased security risk in their organizations. Why do we care? SaaS is harder. That's a good thing if you're in the business of managing complexity. I'd expect this audience to be in that business. Lean into this and lean into expertise on making SaaS more productive. Yesterday, I cited data on the lack of systems around customer experience, and here, there's more complexity to focus on. There's a lot of need out there. In legislative documents we care about, the Office of the Comptroller and Currency, or OCC, recently released its annual Cybersecurity and Financial System Resiliency Report. An independent bureau of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, led by the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC regulates and supervises all national banks, federal savings associations, federal branches, and agencies of foreign banks. In its report, the OCC clearly outlines concern at the federal level that the MSPs can pose a risk to financial clients. Quote, service providers can pose a significant risk to their bank clients and the banking system if providers have operational or financial issues that affect the delivery of critical services, the report states. Why do we care? I'm going to focus on that call out for service providers. The Treasury views them as a significant risk. It's not a great place to be. The next step when an agency identifies risks is defining rules to offset that risk. Time will tell. And as we lay the year to rest, a bit more insight into employees. A recent study by workspace collaboration analytics company Voipta found a connection between employee retention and meeting attendance. Based on anonymized metadata from 48 million virtual meetings in 10 different organizations, the research found that employees who eventually left their company were in 46% fewer one-on-one meetings and 22% less likely to have hosted meetings than non-departing employees. While the data does not prove a causal relationships between meeting attendance and retention, the correlation may indicate changes in meeting culture within enterprises. In addition, a study by the Harvard Business Review found that virtual meetings have become more frequent, spontaneous, shorter, and include fewer participants. The number of meeting participants decreased from 20 in 2020 to 10 in 2021, and 66% of one-on-one meetings were unscheduled. There were also 60% more virtual meetings in 2021 than in 2020, and 42% of meetings were one-on-one, compared to 17% in 2020. In fact, both studies independently found that meeting participants shrunk by half, down to 10 from 20. Why do we care? There's management insight here. Smaller meetings, less of them, more one-on-ones, meeting-free days. These are intentional choices that managers will need to make to be more effective and, seemingly, keep employees. There's a push and pull here. One doesn't want to have too infrequent contact for fear of isolation. It's intentional to be an effective manager. And now, the rules have changed.
Thanks for watching this week in the Business of Tech. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSP Radio. It's our give what you want model, where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this show, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary podcast, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue subscribe button. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all of them, and I look forward to talking to you next time.